Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving Up Live right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and on Twitter. As always, I'm Bryson Carver. We've got an absolutely packed show for you guys tonight. A lot of NBA playoff talk, but I'll tell you, the NFL just won't go away this offseason. I mean, seriously, they will not let these new draft picks have their moment. I mean, now we got the Deebo Samuel situation. And I'm here to discuss that a little bit, why I understand Deebo's frustration with the 49ers, and assuming he gets traded, which sounds like he doesn't want to be in San Francisco anymore, I've got a destination in mind that I actually think would work really well. I'll discuss that, as well as, we got to talk about my Warriors, of course. For the live audience, you can see I'm wearing my Steph Curry white jersey, of course, repping the two-time league MVP and the future four-time NBA champion once this June rolls around. I'm going to discuss my Warriors domination of the Nuggets, why the Warriors domination is not, or dominance, I guess is a better word to say, is not surprising, and why Nikola Jokic shrinking in the playoffs is equally not surprising. I'll discuss that, as well as the Devin Booker injury for the Phoenix Suns. We are about to learn a lot about the Phoenix Suns in these next 3 to 4 to 5 days or so. I'll discuss that, as well as the Joel Embiid game-winning shot last night. I'm going to make my case for why, or at least my case for why Embiid should be MVP. You know me, I'd vote Giannis. I would vote Giannis, but I've said on the show for weeks now, if Embiid wins it, I have no problems. I got big problems if Jokic wins it. I would vote Giannis. If Embiid won it, hey, you're not going to hear any complaints from this show. And so I will make my case, if he wins it, for why he could be the MVP. But first, let me tell you, or let me give you sort of an analogy. So I love sports, but I also love U.S. history, particularly presidential history, and I love movies. And, there's a movie. It's not a great one. If you're 9-10 years old, you'll probably enjoy it. But there's a movie from the year 2012. It's called Thunderstruck, okay? And the movie Thunderstruck stars Kevin Durant, and he is, of course, at the time, of course, the name of the movie, he is a member of the Oklahoma City Thunder. And the movie is about a kid, I'm going to say 16, 17 years old, kid named Brian. And Brian loves basketball, and he's a huge fan of the Thunder, but there's only one small little problem for Brian. Brian sucks at basketball. Like, he's terrible. And to cheer him up, he had a rough day at school. He got picked on. So his dad, to cheer him up, takes him to an Oklahoma City Thunder game. And through a series of events, I won't go into it, it's at halftime, he meets Kevin Durant. This Kevin Durant's like his hero, right? Like, this is his favorite play and everything. He's, starstruck. And he says, I want to be just like you when I grow up. And KD says something, I'm paraphrasing, but he says something along the lines of, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work, or something like that, because he's signing a basketball for Brian, and Brian is also holding the basketball as KD is signing it. And through it's like some magical powers or something, Brian shows up the next day and he's playing basketball like Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant goes to shoot around the next day and is straight trash. Like, airballing shots, not even hitting the rim, hitting the backboard. I mean, can't even make layups, can't jump more than 2 inches off the ground. Like, it's bad, right? I think that movie, I guess you could classify it as the genre as a fantasy, because that can never happen. But I think we probably should change it into more of a, a documentary, a biopic, something. Because that's exactly what is happening to Kevin Durant right now. I think that Brian from Thunderstruck became a Nets fan. And after KD balled out in the play-in game when they beat Cleveland, I think that he met that Brian kid again, and they switched powers. And Kevin Durant sucked at basketball again. I don't know what the heck's going on with Kevin Durant. Because my guess was, okay, he had an off, not a bad, but an off game one. Kyrie was phenomenal. And KD was just, Like I told y'all on the show on Monday, he gave up on the buzzer-beating layup by Jason Tatum. KD gave up that backdoor cut to where Smart found Tatum. If KD follows Tatum, Smart probably throws up some wild shot. It probably misses, and Brooklyn wins game one. Kevin Durant, You could look at the stat sheet and say, well, I mean, come on, he scored 27. That's only 2 points below his average. He couldn't have been all that bad. Yeah, there's only one little problem with that. For the game, he shot 4 for 17, made 1 3-pointer, and in the second half, went 0 for 10. Even worse, his team had a 17-point lead. You got to close the deal. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Kevin, listen, Kyrie Irving didn't play well either. I mean, you look at his stat sheet, 4 for 13, 0 for 1 from 3, 10 points. That's not good enough from Kyrie. The argument, though, I would make for Kyrie is he didn't really get the ball that much. And Kyrie, he's never been a great off-ball player, which is weird because he's a great shooter. So usually great shooters are great off the ball. Kyrie, not really. Kevin Durant. You, my friend, and I've been a Kevin Durant fan since he was at Oklahoma City. Me being a Warriors fan, you can only imagine the emotions I felt when he, on July the 4th of 2016, joined my Warriors. I was ecstatic. Love Kevin Durant. I've said religiously on the show he's the most gifted scorer in the history of the game of basketball. With all of that being said, that was awful. These first 2 games against these Celtics, KD, awful. I mean, and this is the first time that I've seen this probably in years from Kevin Durant. Boston looks like they're rattling him. Now, maybe we shouldn't be all that surprised. Now, I picked the Celtics to win the series in 7 games. I said, look, my main point was, A, the Celtics have clearly a better coach. Ime Udoka is a way better coach than Steve Nash. Number 2, Boston is way better defensively than the Brooklyn Nets. Brooklyn was like 14th. The Celtics were number 1 at the top of the league in defensive rating. And number 3, simply put, there's a reason Boston was the 2 seed and Brooklyn was the 7 seed. But Boston is looking so good defensively, they're looking like they're getting in Kevin Durant's head a little bit. He's rushing shots. He's turning the basketball. He had 6 turnovers last night. KD is not a high turnover player. I mean, he's looking like, these stat lines look like James Harden in the playoffs. And that's unacceptable from a guy who's won 2 championships, 2 finals MVPs, a guy who we all pretty much agree is a great postseason performer. Dude, that's not good. Can you imagine? I was talking to a buddy of mine about this. Can you imagine if in his prime, with either the Cavaliers or the Heat, even the Lakers, if LeBron James had a 17-point lead in a game his team had to have? Because Brooklyn had to have this game, okay? Teams down 2-0 in a series, 7% have came back to win. So, and I don't get a good feeling that these Nets are going to join that group. I think it's like 13 teams have come back from a 2-0 deficit. It might be more than that, but it's very small. And so, but imagine LeBron goes 0 for 10. His team had a 17-point lead. He's got 6 turnovers, 4 for 17 in total. Oh, if Cleveland or Miami won the next 4 games and still won the series, we'd still never forget that. Yeah, remember that time LeBron went 0 for in the second half, blew a 17-point lead? LeBron James would never hear the end of it. And so my point is this. For those who say Kevin Durant's the best player in the world, and it's not a stupid statement to make by any means, by any stretch of the imagination. We know how great Kevin Durant is. We know. That's why I'm being so hard on him. Like, if this was Patty Mills on the Nets, come on, I wouldn't be. I'd say Patty Mills needs to stop taking shots because clearly tonight is not his night. But I wouldn't be just ripping him to shreds because nobody thinks Patty Mills is even in the same conversation as Kevin Durant. But Kevin Durant has always been a guy who, since I would say 2014, when he won his first and to this point only league MVP, it feels like from then to now, these last 8 years, it's been he's on that same level with LeBron. Now, today he's better than LeBron. I believe that. I think LeBron's the 5th best player in the world. KD's to me is 3. I got Giannis and Steph above him. But this has been the guy we've said, okay, LeBron's at the top, but KD's KD is inches from LeBron. Dude, LeBron didn't do this in the playoffs. He didn't do this. And LeBron was a distributor too. So the turnovers are going to happen. I've always said KD's an underrated passer. He's not what you would call a distributing player. He's not like a point forward. He's not a LeBron James. He's not a Draymond Green. He's not a point forward. He is a scorer and a scorer first. And is a solid defensive player. He's not even been good defensively these first 2 games. So yes, you can blame on Kyrie, and he deserves it. You got to score more than 10 points, man. You got to be better. But this, the guy who a lot of people think is the best player on earth, this is unacceptable. This is unacceptable. I am not going to say the series is over. I'm not ready to go there yet because I still have enough respect for Kevin Durant to think I'm giving him a puncher's chance to win this series. However, you had to have that game last night to give yourself a better chance. Because if it's 1-1 going home, right? Let's say KD finally gets in a rhythm in the fourth quarter and the Nets hang on and they win the game. It's a tied series. The series shifts to the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. And we're thinking, man, Brooklyn's sitting pretty right now, right? The lost game won by the skin of their teeth on a buzzer beater, and then they respond with a big win on the road to tie it up, and now we got the home court advantage. We're feeling good. Oh no, it's desperation city now. I could make the case that there has never been more pressure on Kevin Durant to win a basketball game than there's going to be on Saturday night for Game 3. Because the eyeballs tune into that game. TV, phone, tablet, computer, whatever, however you're going to watch the game. Everybody's going to be glued in to one guy. Number 7, wearing black. We're going to be watching that guy. You that dude? What are you without the Warriors? Great. Still great. Nobody's disputing that. But are you that dude? Are you a guy who can lead a team to a championship? That's a whole different level. That's LeBron, Giannis, Kawhi, Steph. That level. We'll find out. I would argue, I think there was more pressure on KD going to the 2017 finals with the Warriors because he'd never won a championship. He was with a stacked team. He was playing LeBron. There was pressure. I'm talking about a single game. I don't think there's ever been more pressure. Because Brooklyn loses Game 3. The series is a wrap. No team's ever come back from a 3-0 deficit in the history of the NBA playoffs. This Brooklyn team dang sure ain't going to be the first. We know that. And so, can you imagine if KD, right, joins the Brooklyn Nets, okay? So he's out for his entire first season with Brooklyn, okay? That we understand that. But his first real season with Brooklyn goes out in the second round. Played great. Lost in the second round. His next year, when his team was the favorites to win the championship. Brooklyn was the betting favorite to win the whole thing, folks. And you lose in the first round. And how your old team, that team in the Bay Area is playing right now, you could have still been there winning championships. Oh, folks, there has never been more pressure on Kevin Durant going into a single basketball game, not a series, a game, than there will be on Saturday night. I cannot wait. It is going to be one of the more fascinating games of the playoffs. There's no question about it. No question about it. I am fascinated to see what happens. Grady is in the comments. What's up, Grady? He says, the problem with the Nets is their top dogs don't really want it. They say they do, but their top 2 dogs play basketball like this is the park or something. They aren't coachable or held accountable. Heck, they don't even believe they need a coach. KD and Kyrie, yes, you made the point, or they made the point on a podcast. This was I don't know if this was going into KD's first healthy season or this was right after they joined. I think it was their first healthy season because the Nets were looking for a coach. I don't know. I can't remember if they had hired Steve Nash or if they were still looking for a coach. I can't remember. But yeah, both KD and Kyrie said, yeah, we don't need a coach. Nah. I mean, I've heard a lot of people in the media say this today, and it's a fair point. What does Brooklyn run offensively? Give the ball to 7 and get out of the way, or give the ball to 11 and get out of the way. Give it to Kevin or give it to Kyrie and just get out of the way. It doesn't really look like they run anything. It really doesn't. Boston, on the other hand, whole different story. Like, Brooklyn was pretty good defensively. Like, that's been their real bugaboo all season long, really since KD and Kyrie joined. Like, they've never been a good defensive team. Last night they were solid until the fourth quarter when the Celtics shot 62% for the field and Jaylen Brown went off. Right? So you look at that. But even Boston, when Brooklyn would have a good defensive sequence, right? They'd be moving, forcing the Celtics into tough looks. They would always, at the last second, get a good look to Grant Williams, to Jason Tatum, to Peyton Pritchard, who makes the big shots in the fourth quarter. Brooklyn, it's KD or bust, or it's Kyrie or bust. You can't win a championship like that. You just can't. You know, Shaquille O'Neal on TNT always talks about the others. What do the others do? Well, for Brooklyn, well, the irony of it is, the others for the Brooklyn Nets, Goran Dragic was outstanding last night, right? 18 points, 8 for 14 for the field. I mean, you'll take that any day of the week from Goran Dragic, especially at his advanced age. You look down the list at, guys like Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown gave you 23. Bruce Brown isn't a great three-point shooter. He went 3 for 4. He knocked down his three-point shots. Seth Curry's been terrible over the last few games. Seth Curry gave you 16, hit 4 threes. The irony of the Nets is the others showed up and the two superstars didn't. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's just this is the issue with the Nets. Chemistry's awful. Coaching is subpar. Right? I mean, there were sequences in that game when Boston was making their big comeback in the fourth quarter where, I mean, that building, the TD Garden, is about to explode. It's so loud. And Jason Tatum knocks down a shot, or Jaylen Brown or Marcus Smart hits a shot. It's like, Nash, you got 3 timeouts. Just call timeout, slow it down, give your guys a rest, try and turn down the temperature in the room. And it's like, dude. And you would think Steve Nash, of all people, a point guard, one of the 10 greatest point guards in NBA history, would know when to slow it down, when to stop the game for a moment. But like you said, Grady, I guess KD and Kyrie don't need a coach, in order to win. That's what they said. Game 3. Man, Game 3 is going to be something. It's going to be something on Saturday night. I can't wait. Shifting to the National Football League for just a moment, I tell you what, this is the craziest offseason I can ever remember, ever. I mean, we dubbed it March Madness, right? Because of all the crazy things that happened this offseason in the NFL. All the crazy stuff happened in March. And it's just continuing in April. It really is. Deebo Samuel now might be on the move. Deebo Samuel, superstar. I call him a skill position player because the Niners use him in all different, ways, shapes, and forms. He can catch it. He can run it. He can do anything. I even made the joke. He can catch it. He can run it. He can throw it. He threw a touchdown pass to my man, Juwan Jennings, in the last game of the regular season against the Rams. They ran a trick play, and Deebo threw the pass to a wide-open Juwan Jennings, right? And so Deebo Samuel, we know, is that dude. He's phenomenal. And reportedly, he wants a trade. He has asked for a trade from the San Francisco 49ers. Now, he wants a new deal. Apparently, reportedly, the Niners have offered him a new deal. He said no. Apparently, other reports have said that he wants to be the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. Now, I would not give him that. To me, highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL, that honor should go to Aaron Donald. Because Aaron Donald might be the best player in football, quarterback or not. Like, we don't have another player in the NFL that can single-handedly take over a game like Aaron Donald can. It's ridiculous what that guy can do on the football field. And so you have that aspect of it. Deebo Samuel wants out. So I was thinking about this in terms of Deebo, because apparently he's frustrated. He's reportedly frustrated with how the 49ers use him. And I think it's the numbers kind of back up if he's saying what I think he's saying in terms of he doesn't like how he's being used. My guess is he doesn't like that he is used these days primarily as more of a running back than a wide receiver. And again, the numbers back it up. You look at his first 33 games in the NFL. He had 149 catches, only 34 carries, 8 receiving touchdowns, 4 rushing touchdowns. Okay? Compare that to the last 11 games. Just the last 11 games. So basically the first 75% of his career, he's a receiver. The last 11 games, he's basically a running back. Because he's had 111 fewer catches, way more rushes, right? 46 more rushes, more carries, 5 less receiving touchdowns, 4 more rushing touchdowns. And so I think what Deebo is saying, he's saying, look, I've had some issues with injuries. Some of that is the way I play. Some of that is the way I'm used. The way Deebo Samuel plays, physical player, right? He can fly, man. We know he's got 4.4 speed at least, but he's very physical. He likes contact. And so he's saying, my guess is he's saying, I can still play that way, but I don't want to be used like Elijah Mitchell, right? The starting running back for the 49ers. I want the ball to be thrown to me more. Now, Kyle Shanahan, who is one of the most brilliant offensive play callers in the sport, from Kyle Shanahan's perspective, I can make the argument for him that he's saying, look, Deebo, we just want to get the ball in your hands. We want to ensure that you're getting the ball because we know Jimmy Garoppolo can be hot and Jimmy Garoppolo can be cold. So we want to ensure, however we got to do it, that you have the ball in your hands. Because when you have the ball in your hands, it is lightning. It's really thunder and lightning because he can hit you and he can outrun you. I mean, he's a phenomenal. He's just a phenomenal football player, right? And so he's fantastic. He's one of the best in the business. Grady asked, he says, is the fact Deebo might be an indictment against Trey Lance? There is that possibility. Listen, some of the reports coming out of San Francisco about Trey Lance aren't great, about him being ready or not. Grady's saying Deebo wanting out of San Francisco is an indictment against Trey Lance. I don't think that in itself is an indictment of Trey Lance. I think it's Deebo wants to get paid. Because, look, he sees the market for wide receivers. I mean, Tyreek Hill just got $30 million. Devontae Adams just got $30 million. Like, 2-3 years ago, that's superstar quarterback money, right? So it just goes to show you the importance of the wide receiver in today's game. So when I think about potential suitors for Deebo Samuel, let me just go and shut this down. Everybody's talking about the Dallas Cowboys. That's not going to happen for 2 reasons. One, because Jerry all of a sudden has gotten cheap with free agents. And 2, even if it does happen, Kellen Moore is going to find a way to screw it up. He is. He can't even make Tony Pollard work. He's not going to make Deebo Samuel work. Okay, I've refrained from talking Cowboys for a few weeks. It's been quite refreshing. But he's not going to, he's not going to make Deebo Samuel work. It's Kellen Moore we're talking about. But when I look down the list at teams that I think he would possibly fit, I have been campaigning for this team to go get a superstar wide receiver for a good 2 years on this show. The Baltimore Ravens. Why not the Baltimore Ravens? Why can't they go get Deebo Samuel? Because you look at, cap space. Now, they're right in the middle of the league. They're at 17th in cap space. But when you look at a well-run organization, when you look at an offense that Deebo would be a beautiful fit in, the Greg Roman offense, because I think they would still use Deebo as more of a runner, but more of a pass catcher. I mean, Hollywood Brown, Marquise Brown, like him, but he's not a number one receiver. Lamar Jackson's made Hollywood Brown look, I think, better than Hollywood Brown actually is. Lamar Jackson, everybody's hard on him, like, oh, he's not a, he's not a great thrower of the football. He's not Allen or Mahomes or Burrow, but the kid's pretty darn accurate. He threw 36 touchdown passes his MVP year. Okay, he's no scrub in terms of throwing the football. My defense of Lamar Jackson has been, he's never had a number one receiver. Like a true number one. Deebo is. Deebo this past year had over 1,000 yards receiving. And he was used as basically a running back. And he's still at over 1,000 yards receiving with Jimmy Garoppolo. So, give him Lamar Jackson. I think we could see some real magic happening. I get the Ravens like to kind of stock up on running backs. That's what they've been doing in free agency. That's what they've been doing in the draft. I get that. But if you really, because Lamar Jackson still doesn't have a contract yet. If you really, want to see how good Lamar Jackson is, give him Deebo Samuel. Why not? And here's the thing for the 49ers, why it will work for them. You're trading to the opposite conference. Right? You don't have to play him every year. I'm trying to think, do the Niners... Okay, the Niners and Ravens don't play, I think, could be wrong on this, but I think till next year. If I'm not mistaken, I think they do not play until 2023. So it's not like it'll be a situation where Deebo comes back to San Francisco and haunts the Niners and their fans. Like it's not going to be a situation like that. Why not Baltimore? Grady says, people might bring up Green Bay also. No way they're going to be shopping for a car like that. No. I mean, they let Devontae Adams go. They let Corey Linsley, the great center, go. They let Zadarius Smith go. Like, it was a shock to me a couple of years ago when they brought Aaron Jones back. I'm like, wow, they had to get a discount to bring him back. And then they give Aaron Rodgers $50 million. It's like, what are you doing? You guys are not great at picking up free agents. And to be fair, it's not like Green Bay's a great free agent destination. It's not exactly Los Angeles. But, I mean, come on. I mean, I don't think Green Bay makes it happen. But I will say this, if they did, I don't think they will, but if they did, I think it would be a big, big message by the Packers to Aaron Rodgers. Because they'd be saying, okay, in order to give you the $50 million deal, we basically had to let Devontae Adams go. Bring in Deebo Samuel. Okay, Aaron, you've got your $50 million. You've got more control of this organization than you ever had. And we just got you a young, playmaking receiver / running back. What you going to do? Now, I don't think that's going to happen because Green Bay doesn't go out and get anybody. They don't get anybody. They're really the Cowboys. Who the Cowboys are turning into is the Packers. But, I don't think Green Bay's a possibility. We got some breaking news from Shams Charania. So the breaking news came in before our show. The first breaking news came in like about 10 minutes before the show. Luka Doncic is out for tonight's Game 3 against the Utah Jazz. That's not all that surprising. This is why I picked the Jazz to win the series. If Luka was fully healthy, I'm absolutely taking Dallas. If he's not, I cannot see the Mavericks, even as the Jazz tend to be choke artists. But I can't even see them blowing this series if Luka is either out or like 50%. I just can't. I just can't see it working. But some breaking news came in just now from Shams Charania. Chris Middleton will likely miss games 3 and 4 against Chicago and is sidelined indefinitely with a sprained MCL. So that is a big loss. That's your second best player. This is an all-star caliber guy that the Bucks are going to be without. I mean, by the way, last night, did you see DeMar DeRozan? Whew. Guy couldn't miss. I mean, he was driving the basketball. He's knocking down the mid-range. He's really got the best mid-range probably in the NBA. That's all. That's really all he shoots, but he's the best in the league at it, so if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But despite what Giannis did last night, you know, this could be a big, big loss for Milwaukee. I still would take them to beat the Chicago Bulls, and I'm going to get into Devin Booker later in the show, but I think it's ironic the two teams that made the finals last year now are dealing with some major, major injuries in the postseason. So this can be interesting. Back to Deebo for just a second. Grady says, it's time for San Francisco to pay up from the Jimmy Garoppolo trade and give New England Deebo Samuel. It's just the right thing to do. Well, of course it's the right thing to do, Grady, because you're a Patriots fan. Of course you want Deebo Samuel. I mean, look, the Patriots have the cap space. Patriots always have cap space. They don't pay anybody. You want somebody Green Bay doesn't pay anybody. New England didn't even pay their quarterback for 20 years. At least, Green Bay's overpaying theirs, but at least they're paying theirs. I think Deebo would be a good fit in New England. I really do. But I don't think Belichick is not aggressive in trades. Like the Stephon Gilmore is like the trade. The Stephon Gilmore trade back in 2017 was like the most aggressive he's ever been. Even free agency last year, he was signing guys, Matthew Judon, guys like that to pretty lucrative contracts. Hunter Henry, Kendrick Bourne, but we'll see. Again, I think Deebo would fit great with New England. I just don't think they'll do it. But that Chris Middleton injury is big for Milwaukee. And apparently, according to Woj, so I gave you the first tweet by Shams, Woj tweeted an MCL sprain his left knee and will be reevaluated in 2 weeks. So he's basically out. According to Woj, he's out for the rest of the first round. And so it's interesting. I think Milwaukee is built to withstand this in the first round. But this will be interesting moving forward because Milwaukee would probably play Boston in the second round. And I don't think they can beat Boston without Chris Middleton. I really don't. I think Giannis is the best player in the world. So maybe he can carry them to 6 or 7 games. But I think in order to be a championship team, Chris Middleton had a history of really coming up small in the playoffs until last year. People forget Giannis was hurt at the end of the Eastern Conference Finals, and it was Chris Middleton who took the rest of that series over, hitting clutch shots, big threes, turnaround mid-range, getting the basket, knocking down free throws. That is a really big loss for the Milwaukee Bucks, the team that I picked to get back to the NBA Finals. And so that segues beautifully into the team that I picked before the season would lose. The Bucks would lose to in the NBA Finals, and that would, of course, be I take ownership of this, my Golden State Warriors. Look pretty good, don't they? Game 2 against the Denver Nuggets. They, outside of the fact that they won by 20, that Steph Curry scored 34 in just 23 minutes off the bench, that Jordan Poole almost had another 30-piece, that Draymond Green held Nikola Jokic to an inefficient shooting percentage, that Klay was awesome in the third quarter, and that they scored 70 points from midway through the second quarter to the end of the third quarter. Outside of that, they really didn't play all that well. This is not surprising in any way. People seem like genuinely shocked, like, man, look at the Warriors. And I literally said, when I gave my playoff weaknesses, I did my playoff weaknesses for each of the playoff teams, like why they won't win a championship. And for the Warriors, I said, are the 3 stars healthy? Are Steph, Klay, Draymond healthy? This is the first time all season that they've been healthy for a significant stretch of time, and you see what they look like, and you see what Jordan Poole is doing, adding to that, and you see what Andrew Wiggins is giving you on the defensive end and offensively as well. This is the team, folks, that is going to win the NBA championship. Okay? So, and again, people seem so shocked by this, but I think what the Golden State Warriors deserve a ton of credit for is their developmental staff is phenomenal. It really is. Their highest drafted key starter or their key player is Steph Curry. He was drafted 7th. Now, he's a lottery pick from 2009, but he wasn't like the 3rd pick or something, right? Steph Curry was the 7th pick. Klay Thompson was the 11th pick in 2011. Draymond Green was the 35th pick in 2012. Jordan Poole was the 28th pick, 29th pick, if I'm not mistaken, back in 2019. Now, of course, Andrew Wiggins was the number 1 pick, but they traded for him. So, but when you look at how Golden State has developed their guys, look at Jonathan Kuminga, the jump that he has made this year. from his rookie season, for early in his rookie season this year, where he like barely got any minutes, to now when he's, he could score in double figures. And he's the most athletic player on the floor when he comes out there. Like, Golden State is phenomenal at developing their players. This is the difference between the Warriors and the Lakers. Both teams draft really well. I mean, just in the last decade, the Lakers drafted D'Angelo Russell and Julius Randle and Brandon Ingram and Lonzo Ball, all starters in the NBA. Some of them all-star players. You saw what Brandon Ingram did against the Phoenix Suns the other night. He couldn't miss. Lakers can't develop their talent. That's the difference. Because Brandon Ingram didn't set the world on fire when he was 20 or 21. He's no good. He's no good. Just give him time. Jordan Poole shot sub 40% from the field his rookie season. He couldn't throw one in the ocean. Jordan Poole scored 9 points a game his rookie year. He scored 12 points a game his second year. He scored 18 points a game this year. I think he should have been most improved player. The fact that he's not even a finalist is a crime. It's a basketball crime. But the steady, constant improvement from year to year, right? And so the Warriors' domination of the series on both ends of the floor is not surprising me in the slightest. I mean, when you look at the death lineup, let's just call it what it is. It's the death lineup 3.0. Everybody's all hesitant to say, like, is it really the death line? Yes, it is. It's the death lineup 3.0. The first death lineup was Steph, Clay, Draymond, Iguodala, Harrison, Barnes. The second one, the most dominant one, Steph, Clay, Draymond, Iguodala, Kevin Durant. This one, Steph, Clay, Draymond, Poole, Wiggins. Some people, I saw one Warriors fan, they took Wiggins out of it. They said the proper nickname for the Golden State Warriors death lineup is Poole, Thompson, Steph, Draymond. PTSD. It's creative. It's pretty creative. I'm just going to go with the splash triplets because Jordan Poole is a splash triplet. He can cross you up. Some of those passes to Bielitsa were phenomenal. They looked like Magic Johnson out there. I don't hope I don't sound sacrilegious, but my goodness, behind the back, through the legs. I mean, he's out here. It's like the Harlem Globetrotters out here. Steph can't miss. He's getting 4-point plays out here. Only thing Steph couldn't do is hit free throws, which that never happens, right? And Draymond Green is putting the clamps on Nikola Jokic. Nikola Jokic against Draymond Green, who Draymond Green's like a half a foot shorter than Nikola Jokic. Against Draymond Green, Nikola Jokic is 9 for 28. He's 9 for 28, sub 40% against Draymond Green. Now, Draymond Green is one of the greatest defenders in NBA history. He's one of the 7, 8, maybe higher greatest defenders in NBA history. But, I don't know. Some people try to convince me that he's the MVP. I don't know. I mean, he had a historically great season, right? I mean, if you're the first player in NBA history, what was it? Like 2,000 points, 1,000 rebounds, 500 assists, or something like that. Something that had never been done in NBA history. Very impressive, right? He was an all-star starter this year. He's had a great season. Great season. He's phenomenal. Nikola Jokic is a top 10 player in the NBA. But those who made the absurd suggestion, in my opinion, that Nikola Jokic is the most valuable player in basketball. Folks, he's not even the most valuable player on the Nuggets. That's Jamal Murray. In those series back in 2020, the bubble, when the Nuggets came back from 3-1 down on the Utah Jazz, came back from 3-1 down on the Los Angeles Clippers, Jamal Murray was the leading scorer. Jamal Murray, the only win they got in the Western Conference Finals when they took on the eventual champion Lakers, the only win they got in that series, Jamal Murray scored 40. He's the most valuable player on the Nuggets, not Nikola Jokic. Something that is very, very fascinating. Plus minus. Okay, so for those of you who are more casual basketball fans, maybe aren't that familiar with the stat plus minus. Plus minus, don't worry about it. It's a very simple stat. Basically, what is your team? How well does your team play in terms of scoring when you're on the court? So, for example, let's say that Otto Porter Jr. for the Golden State Warriors, he comes off the bench and he plays 15 minutes. And in that stretch, the Golden State Warriors outscore the Nuggets 23-20. Okay, so they outscore them by 3. Otto Porter's plus minus is going to say +3 because the Warriors outscored the Nuggets by 3 when he was on the court. Likewise, if the Nuggets outscore the Warriors 23-20 when Otto Porter's on the court, Otto Porter's plus minus is going to say -3. It's a very simple stat. You want to know who has the worst plus minus in this series? Oh, it's Jokic, the MVP, the guy people trying to convince me he's the MVP. Oh, that's funny. He's -45. He got thrown out. He got ejected in game 2. He got blocked by Gary Payton, who's barely 6 feet tall. He's getting upstaged by Steph Curry, who's getting up in his face, John Adam. Steph ain't scared of Jokic. Little 6'3", skinny. Now, he's put on some muscle, but still little dude compared to Nikola Jokic. He's scared of Jokic. You kidding me? Draymond's shutting him down. But he's the most valuable player in the NBA, is he? Folks, he's getting exposed for what I said he was all season long. He's a great player. Great player. I've said on this show he's the best passing big man probably since Wilt. And if you're doing anything you're compared to Wilt, you're doing something right. That does not make him the most valuable player. Wilt was great. He was never more valuable than Bill Russell. Never. Same thing with Nikola Jokic. Great. But you're trying to tell me he's more valuable to the Denver Nuggets than Giannis is to the Bucks or Embiid is to the Sixers. And I see some comments here from Grady about the Sixers. I'll get to those just a second because I'm about to talk about Joel Embiid. But this is a joke. I mean, it is. I mean, the fact everybody's talking about, oh, Aaron Gordon's not playing well, Will Barton's not playing well, and Boogie Cousins isn't playing well. They got a higher plus minus than Nikola Jokic. Ain't it funny how that works? As a matter of fact, the Nuggets made the game closer after Nikola Jokic got ejected. They made the game closer when he got tossed. So that's the beauty of it. This is why I wanted Denver in the first round as a Warriors fan for 2 reasons. Number 1, because I like our matchup against Denver better than I liked it against Utah. Second, well, I guess there's 3 reasons. Secondly, I wanted to avoid Phoenix until the Western Conference Finals. And third, because I wanted my team to expose the fraudulent, most valuable player that Nikola Jokic is. When you look at the list of NBA players that have won back-to-back MVPs, it is, and Jokic is probably about to join this list. It's fascinating. So players that have won back-to-back MVPs in NBA history, okay? Here's the list. Here's the players that are on this list, okay? Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, Larry Bird, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar did it twice, Moses Malone, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, Tim Duncan, Steve Nash is the outlier on the list, LeBron James did it twice, Steph Curry, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Does anybody think that Nikola Jokic is in the same galaxy as those guys outside of Steve Nash? Nobody thinks that. But nobody is ever going to say, yeah, Jokic is better than Kareem. He's better than Bill Russell. And Tim Duncan, the greatest player in the history the history of the power forward position, he's better than Tim Duncan, And Jordan, yeah, he's definitely better than the guy who's, the greatest player ever. He's better than LeBron, the best player of this generation, or Steph, who changed the way the game's played, or Giannis, who's the best two-way player in basketball. Oh, but he has no help. Could you make the games close? LeBron had no help against the Warriors back in 2018 when I thought he should have won MVP that year. The Joker dropped 51. He scored 51 in game 1 of that series. He averaged over 30. He took the Warriors with Steph, Clay, Draymond, KD. He took them he didn't take them 4 games. I'm sorry, he got swept. That's the one knock on LeBron in that series. He averaged 30, and 2 of those games came down to the wire. Okay, that's what MVPs do. They can't beat you if they have the inferior team, more times than not. But could they make it competitive? Does the opposition fear you? As a Warriors fan, I feared LeBron when he was in Cleveland. I don't fear Jokic. My team doesn't even have Kevin Durant. And I still feared LeBron, even when we had KD. I don't fear Jokic. I'm not like, oh, God, I hope he doesn't beat us. Oh, gosh, I hope this game don't come down to the last 2 minutes or he's going to get us. He's going to get us. Oh, no. No. Worst plus minus in this series, Nikola Jokic. He's gotten exposed for his lack of leadership. You see the Nuggets getting in all these fights on the sideline. Boogie Cousins getting into it with Will Barton. Will Barton's getting into it with Jeff Green. And where's Nikola Jokic? Off to the side, off to himself, not saying anything. He's getting exposed for the fact that he's not the most valuable player. Because the intangibles, I'm sorry, they factor ever so slightly. Not much, but ever so slightly. Giannis, phenomenal leader. Joel Embiid, literally about to get into him. Phenomenal leader. He's shown us that this year. LeBron, right? Steph. This is why this is my one knock against Kawhi. I don't think Kawhi's a phenomenal leader, right? Like, he doesn't galvanize a team. Other guys I met, Jimmy Butler. Holy cow, does he galvanize a basketball team, right? Jokic doesn't do that. A lot of comments to get to here. Sorry I took so long. I had to get that off my chest. Grady says, Philadelphia's coming, Bryson. Harden definitely isn't the top 5 player he used to be, but he's still a top 10, 15 player. If Milwaukee isn't healthy, this team is coming out of the East, but probably losing in 6 to Golden State. Again, I want to kind of say my thoughts on Philly for this next segment. Philadelphia would play Miami in the second round. If they played Milwaukee, like, that would be, with Middleton out, I'd be like, ooh, that's an interesting series. They play Miami. Miami is shutting Trae Young down. Now, look, Embiid's better than Trae Young. We know that. And he's certainly, clearly, anybody just, you have to watch basketball. You just look at them side by side. Anybody knows Embiid has a way greater physical presence than Trae Young, clearly. There's nothing about Trae Young's game that's physical in any way, shape, or form, right? But Miami is a great defensive team. Boston's a great defensive team. You see what they're doing to Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. KD, I think, my personal opinion, I think he's better than Embiid. Embiid's my 4th best player in the world. So, I mean, we can go back and forth on that. But Philly's definitely playing good basketball. Again, I'll get to them in just a second. Grady says, the sad thing about the Lakers still could have gotten AD by trading Kuzma instead of BI. How about this too, Grady, about Kuzma? And again, it goes to the fact I said, the Lakers draft well. They do. Like, they haven't really drafted a ton of bums. Cleveland, up until like Darius Garland, drafted some bums, right? I mean, was it Anthony Bennett was the guy's name, the first pick in 2013? We could just go on from there, right? Lakers draft well. Kyle Kuzma. What do you average, like 18 points, 9 rebounds this year? Looks like a bum with the Lakers. Look, I mean, I was like on the show, like, why is Kuzma even playing? The Wizards are better at developing young talent than the Lakers. The Wizards? No, come on. Grady says, would have had a big 3. That'd have been scary, man. LeBron, AD, and Ingram. You're right. That'd have been scary. There's no question about it. Grady says, I think you even know in a 7-game series, Embiid would give your Warriors trouble. Yes, I absolutely agree. Embiid is better than Jokic, and it's not even close. I 100% agree with you, Grady. If Joel Embiid is on the Denver Nuggets, I still take my Warriors to win the series because they would still have the better team. But I'd still be like, oh boy, I hope this guy don't go off. Because if he gets in a rhythm, because obviously he's got a jump shot. I mean, by the way, Nikola Jokic has gotten some wide open threes in the series and is clanking them. Embiid, we saw last night, hit the biggest shot of the playoffs so far. But he and Tatum hit the biggest shots of the playoffs thus far. Embiid knocks down his threes, right? And he can dominate you inside. As great of a defender as Draymond is, I don't know how much you're going to do to stop Joel Embiid, right? There's, Mark Jackson. By the way, Lakers, hire Mark Jackson, please. Give that man a head coaching job. But Mark Jackson always says, great offense beats great defense any day of the week. Embiid's going to stop. Embiid's going to go off on Draymond, as great as Draymond is defensively. John, he's talking about Jokic. He said he's not winning this year. Boy, do I hope you're right, John. I really, really, really hope you're right. It'll be like a sigh of relief if they announce Giannis Antetokounmpo wins the 2022 Most Valuable Player, or Joel Embiid wins 2022 Most Valuable Player. I'll be like, oh, thank God. Oh, they didn't screw up this time, because they screwed it up last year. Steph should have been MVP. If it wasn't Steph, should have been Chris Paul. In terms of value, they're more valuable than Jokic. Grady says, when AD is healthy and gives a crap, I'll take him over Jokic. AD took his lunch money in the Western Conference Finals 2 years ago. Did he? Goodness. I mean, AD at the end of that bubble, we're like, is this like a top 3-4 player? I mean, that's been my biggest issue with AD. It's like the dude just flat out doesn't take care of his body. Comes into camp out of shape. Clearly doesn't put in the money into his body that LeBron does. That's why LeBron's been able to play this long. So, yeah, when AD's at his best, I think anybody would agree he's better than Jokic. No question. He can certainly dominate a game better than Jokic, without a shadow of a doubt, on both ends, because he was up for Defensive Player of the Year. I thought AD should win Defensive Player of the Year over Rudy Gobert in 2018. Shout out to Barry Grant Jr. for that nickname for Rudy. I thought he should have won that year because he was great with the Pelicans, but hey, that's a whole nother conversation for another day. Speaking of a great big who's great on both ends of the floor, let's talk about Joel Embiid. My goodness. Like I said, if Jason Tatum didn't have the shot of the playoffs, this guy did. And certainly in terms of, level of difficulty, he definitely takes the cake for the shot of the playoffs. Game-winning 3 against the Toronto Raptors in overtime, beat them in Toronto. They were down 17. Like KD, I was ripping him early in the show. He blew a 17-point lead. Embiid and the Sixers came back from a 17-point deficit, albeit it was in the first quarter, but they still came back, won the game, and Joel Embiid in the game was phenomenal. 33 points, 13 rebounds, and the game-winning 3. Wasn't a buzzer beater, but there was 0.7 of a second left, so darn close. Let me start with Embiid, and then I'll get to Philadelphia. Embiid. So if you were going to vote for Joel Embiid for MVP, first of all, I got no problem with you. If anything, I'm like, hey, as long as it's not Jokic, I'm good. But if I were an MVP voter and I wanted to vote for Joel Embiid, I'd vote for Giannis, as I've said over and over. But if I want to vote for Joel Embiid, here's what I would say. Okay. So he comes into this season. He's in shape. He's healthy. Check, because he's shown a tendency to come into camp out of shape and deal with injuries throughout the year. This is the first, and knock on wood that it continues, the first season in Joel Embiid's career where he's been healthy all the way through. So you have that. Then you have nothing but drama. Did I forget to mention drama? With one Ben Simmons. He shows up to camp, doesn't want to be there, shows he doesn't want to be there. He's got his phone in his pocket. He's looking down at his phone in practice, gets kicked out by Doc Rivers, never to be seen or heard from again up until he gets traded. And he's being asked by the media constantly, what do you think about Ben Simmons? Have you talked to Ben Simmons? Ben Simmons. And Embiid's out there. He's like, doesn't outside of like one go around, doesn't really throw Simmons under the bus, leads the Sixers into I think they were the 4 or 5 seed when they traded for James Harden. So they got off to a much better start than they should have, with basically just Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, who was not good in the regular season, has been great in the playoffs, was not good in the regular season, and Tyrese Maxey. So Philadelphia shouldn't have been where they were at in Eastern Conference that today, in my opinion, is better than the West. I think it's deeper than the West with contenders. Then they make the James Harden trade, and they get off to a great start. He and James Harden. And then Harden's starting to shoot sub 40%. In some games, sub 30% from the field. Right? He's struggling. He goes in the playoffs, not a ton of momentum. And what does Joel Embiid do? He wins the scoring title. Remember, it was a tight race. It was Embiid, LeBron, and Giannis were right neck and neck for the scoring title. Embiid says, screw this. I'm going to go get the scoring title. And he did. First center since Shaquille O'Neal, Dr. Shaquille O'Neal, to win the scoring title. He did that. So led the league in scoring, big plus. Led Philadelphia to where they really shouldn't have been given the drama with Ben Simmons and James Harden this year. Okay, there's a check there. And has shown leadership skills that I didn't know was there. Right? He's kind of, I talk about guys in the NBA that galvanize their team. I put Joel Embiid in that group. He's done that this year. Right? Verbally and with his play on the court. Like Joel Embiid, we kind of used to think of him as, Lord have mercy, he's talented. But then like, he's a little showboatish, maybe a little mature. He's changed that in how he takes care of his body, how he handles being the best player on the team, which I think he was even when Simmons was there, but he like really had to assume that this year. So I think given all those things, how he's improved as a leader, as a basketball player, how he's improved in the clutch. We saw that last night, even though the postseason doesn't count towards the MVP, which I think it should, but it doesn't. Sure. I mean, I don't have an issue if you vote for him for MVP. I'm not going to, argue. I'm going to argue big time if you vote Nikola Jokic. But Embiid, I don't have an issue. I think you could absolutely make a case he's the MVP. Grady says, he says the media is just scaring me with how much they're talking about Jokic, and I'll take it seriously because those guys have votes. Yes, they do. And that is why it just, you and I were talking earlier today, Grady, about the how if Jokic wins this year, it like legit, I don't even think I'm even going hyperbole with this, but like it cheapens the award slightly. Because Jokic will join a group of guys with not just 2 MVPs, back-to-back MVPs of the 3 greatest centers ever, Kareem, Bill Russell, and Wilt Chamberlain. Or I would say 3 of the 4 greatest centers ever, because Shaq's definitely in that group. I think Shaq's the second greatest center of all time. But he joins that group with them and Duncan and Michael Jordan and LeBron and Steph, Giannis, Moses Malone. I mean, come on. Like, he's not in that group. He's not. But I do, listen, I'll be thrilled for Joel Embiid, because seeing how he has matured as a player, as a leader, how he's gotten Philadelphia to a point where they're talented. We understand that. But they really shouldn't be here. To be completely, 100% real with y'all. They really shouldn't be here, given all the nonsense they've dealt with this year. Yeah, I think Embiid very well could be the MVP. I think it's Giannis, but if it's Embiid, hey, have at it. Grady says, Embiid is the truth. He is Shaq 2.0 with a better hairline. Better hairline. And a 3-point shot. Never would I take him all time over Shaq, though. Guy will be a champion at some point. Oh, yeah, I mean, he would have to do a lot to pass Shaq. I mean, Shaq in his prime with the Magic and the Lakers, and then that short little spurt with the Heat, was the most dominant player in basketball. Was he the best at all points? Maybe not, but the most dominant, yeah. The footwork, the fact that you had a big man who could dunk on your head, but also had a good little hook shot. It wasn't like Kareem, but he had a nice little hook shot, phenomenal footwork in the paint. Yeah, I mean, Shaq, we're talking about a guy who has 4 championships, 3 finals MVPs, a regular season MVP. Like, Embiid would have to do a lot to pass Shaquille O'Neal. But I think he is the best big man we've seen since Shaquille O'Neal. I'd put him over Dwight Howard, absolutely. Like you said, he's got a 3-point shot. Dwight definitely has never had a 3-point shot. Shaq couldn't even hit a free throw. He hit 1 3 his whole career, and he did it his rookie season with the Orlando Magic. Embiid, we saw last night, he's got the range, he's got the touch. He's as good as they come. No question about it. Now, to Philadelphia. The Sixers, I think, are a different story. I mean, hear me out. So, obviously, they're up 3-0 on the Raptors. So, they're going to win that series. There's no question. The question is, will they sweep or not? I actually, for somebody who picked Philadelphia to win it in a competitive 6-game series, I can't say I'm all that impressed. Hear me out. They dominate game 1. Great. But Toronto's beat up right now. Scotty Barnes is out. Thad Young is out. Like, they got some, key pieces that are not playing basketball for them. Game 2, they continue. I mean, they were beating Toronto down. They were up by 27 points at one point. And the fourth quarter, we're not talking garbage time. We're talking like 5 minutes left in the game. The game had not been decided. Toronto cut that baby down to 11. And then last night, a beat-up Toronto team, it takes a big comeback by Philly and a game-winning shot by Joel Embiid to win. Considering Toronto's injuries, I think, first of all, Philadelphia should be up 3-0, considering the injuries. And two, these games have been closer than I personally think they should, and I attribute that, and I love him as a guy, but as a coach, he drives me crazy. Doc Rivers. The king of blowing 3-1 leads, we know that. Last year, he didn't blow a 3-1 lead to the Hawks, but he had 2 games in which his team had a 20-point lead and lost both. It was games 4 and 5 of that series. They win both of those games, they win the series over Atlanta, right? And so you have that aspect to it. You have the fact that you got to close out a game at home when you're up 27 points. So the fact that it even got questionable, we still thought Philly would win, but we're like, Toronto's making it a little bit uncomfortable. But I think it was Danny Green. It was either Danny Green or Tyrese Maxey. I think it was Maxey hit a huge three-pointer, which put them up 14, and they closed the game from there. It's coaching that bothers me for Philly. It's James Harden. We know what he does, and more specifically doesn't do in the postseason. He hasn't been all that great in this series. I mean, just in Game 3 last night, I mean, that was a Joel Embiid show, without a question. But just last night, James Harden only shot 13 times, scored 19 points. Like, he's not the James Harden of old anymore. And even the James Harden of old wasn't good in the playoffs. So we're going to see, especially in the second round, in these games 4, 5, 6, even 7 possibly if it gets there, when they take on the Miami Heat. Because Miami's going to beat Atlanta, Philly's going to beat Toronto. What does Harden do? Because Embiid can't do it by himself. Not against this Miami team. Not against this Miami team. Embiid's going to get his, but he can't do it by himself. Does Maxey step up? I think Maxey does step up. But does Harden step up? Does Doc Rivers step up? Does Tobias Harris continue what he's been doing? That's the question. Now, if they do, you could make the argument they're the favorite out east, Grady, and those who like Philadelphia. But they very well could if this continues. But Miami is a little better than Toronto. We'd all agree with that. So I think that factors without a question. Moving on, again, we got some great playoff games tonight. We got one that tips off in less than 30 minutes. This series is so fascinating. The Memphis Grizzlies, the Minnesota Timberwolves. So Minnesota stole game 1. Memphis responded big time in game 2. So you got game 3 in Minnesota, which is a great atmosphere. I said the series would go 6 games, and I'd take Memphis to win. But I mean, this could be interesting. I still think Memphis wins, but Minnesota could push them further than Memphis wants to be pushed, while Golden State, because I said before the series, they're going to sweep Denver. I think that's pretty obvious. Golden State will beat Denver tonight. They'll beat Denver on Sunday, and they'll get some rest, while Memphis might still be duking it out with Minnesota. So Minnesota could, kind of help us out in that regard. Kind of, usher in a series between the Warriors and Grizzlies, where the Grizzlies are kind of beat up from a physical series with Cat, Ant, Pat Bev, and all those Rough Riders for the Timberwolves. So, but that game tips off at 7:30 Eastern on TNT. The Grizzlies are 1.5-point road favorites. The Mavs and Jazz play tonight. Again, Luka is out, and it is definitely reflected in this line. The game tips off at 9 Eastern on NBA TV. The Jazz are 8.5-point favorites. So Vegas loves the Jazz. That is a line I would not even come near, because we know what the Jazz do and don't do in the postseason. We know what Rudy Gobert does and doesn't do, and Quinn Snyder and everybody. Like, Donovan Mitchell is the one guarantee you get with the Jazz. Donovan Mitchell's going to show up. Does everybody else show up? Does Clarkson and Conley and those guys show up? I don't know. I don't know. And then the last game, of course, is my Warriors, who will beat the Nuggets tonight. That game tips off at 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific on TNT. My Warriors are 2.5-point road favorites. I think it should be a little more than that, but I'm good with that. I would definitely bet the over without a question. Grady says, I think someone said, excuse me, I got something, my top of my nose is itching. I think someone said from the TNT show, all that's left for the Sixers to do was to sweep the Raptors. Acknowledge, though humorously, I was thinking about all there is left to do is blow a 3-0 lead. No, they're not going to blow a 3-1 lead. Don't worry about Grady. Grady asked, does Doc Rivers lose his job if they lose to Miami? Well, it depends on how they lose. If they lose in a competitive, back and forth series is decided because Jimmy Butler hit some clutch shots or because James Harden couldn't make clutch shots, missing and making ain't coaching. Now, setting your guys up for good looks, that's coaching. But if it's Philly blows some leads in a couple games or situationally they're not good and they lose to a well-coached Miami team led by Eric Spoelstra, possibly. Because there were rumors last year. Because Philadelphia should not have lost to Atlanta. Atlanta had a great season last year. Philadelphia was better than Atlanta. They were the number one seed for a reason. They should not have lost that series. I put Ben Simmons at the highest on the blame list and Doc Rivers right behind him. And Joel Embiid wasn't great in that series either from games 5 on. But I think there'll be plenty of rumblings considering Doc Rivers' playoff history. It's definitely a discussion. But my answer to your question would be, how do they lose? How do they lose? That's how I'd answer that. Now, moving on to the team that had the best record in the NBA. They won a franchise record 64 games. They went 64-18 this season. Had a phenomenal year. I'm, of course, talking about the Phoenix Suns, who find themselves in a very interesting predicament. They lost game 2 at home to the New Orleans Pelicans. Brandon Ingram went off, especially in the fourth quarter. I think he scored 37. What was it? 37 points, I think it was. And he scored like 21 of them in the second half alone. I think it was 37. Let's see. Brandon Ingram, I'm trying to find his 37 points by Brandon Ingram. Again, a very efficient 37. He got there on 21 shots, made all of his three-pointers, 11 rebounds. It was an assist away from a triple-double. So Brandon Ingram was the best player on the floor on Tuesday night in Phoenix. But Devin Booker, I'm sure you guys saw, is out with a hamstring injury. Probably, I think they said for games 3 and 4, and we'll see, from there moving forward if he can go in a possible. Well, there's no possible. There's going to be a game 5. Does he go in game 5? Is he available if the Suns win for the next series? I mean, we all know about hamstring injuries. Like they tend to take a minute to heal. You can't rush back. That's the one injury you cannot rush back from as a hamstring. Because one little move and you'll tweak it again and you'll be done for the rest of the season. You could tear it even if it's compromised in any way. By the way, Devin Booker, his whole career has had issues with both of his hamstrings, so it might be something he needs to go get checked out after the season completes. But this is going to be really interesting for the Phoenix Suns, and here's why. Because I will still take them to beat the Pelicans. I think they're built to withstand a Devin Booker injury for a series in which they're taking on an inferior team. As good as New Orleans is, and as good as New Orleans has been playing, Phoenix is a better basketball team. What's interesting about this, and it goes to show you, every champion in the history of sports needs luck. Every single one needs luck. If nothing else, even if you're the greatest team ever, you still need luck. Why is that? Well, you need to be healthy. You got to have your guys there. And Phoenix, they played the Lakers. Anthony Davis gets hurt. In the second round against the Nuggets, Jamal Murray's out. In the Western Conference Finals against the Clippers, Kawhi Leonard's out. Now, that's not to take any credit away from Phoenix, right? Because we would be killing them if they'd lost those series. So let's give them credit when they take care of business. Last year, Phoenix got breaks, and to their credit, took advantage of their breaks. This year, they're being dealt kind of a tough hand because now their best player, I think Chris Paul's their most valuable player, but Devin Booker's their best player. Devin Booker is now out. I would think because it's a hamstring, the rest of the series. So how does Phoenix respond? The great Mike Tyson, which by the way, Mike Tyson had an interesting video on. He was on an airline. He knocked somebody out. I don't know. I'm not going to speculate on what was behind that incident. But Mike Tyson has the great quote. Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Well, Phoenix just got punched in the mouth because they just lost a game 2 at home, and now they've lost the home court advantage for the moment, and they've just lost their best player for the rest of the series. Now, Grady's in the comments. He's not as optimistic as I am about Phoenix. He says Phoenix is totally screwed. And I'm giving the Pelicans a chance. the way that Ingram is playing, the way that CJ McCollum is finally showing up in the playoffs, Willie Green, the head coach for the Pelicans, by the way, coached with the Golden State Warriors, Willie Green's done a great job. The team started 1-12, and they've seized home court advantage of a first-round series against the team with the best record in the NBA. That's big time. Valanciunas has played well. Larry Nance has given them a great impact off the bench. Herb Jones. So the Pelicans are playing really good basketball right now, dating back to the end of the regular season, in the play-in tournament against the Spurs and the Clippers, and then now against Phoenix. But I just think it's really interesting because Phoenix, up until the finals, they got a break in every single round with injuries. Now they're being dealt injuries. I'm not counting them out, but I'm just saying, let's see how they respond. I believe game 3 it is tomorrow night in New Orleans. Tip-off is at 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific on ESPN. Phoenix is actually a 1.5-point favorite, which I think is really interesting. I mean, it tells you what the bettors in Vegas think about the Suns. That's going to be interesting. And like Grady says, he says, I love Chris Paul. I share that with you, Grady. Chris Paul is one of my favorite players. Grady says, I love Chris Paul, but he could get hurt at any moment in the playoffs. That has always been the bugaboo for Chris Paul. Like Chris Paul, the vast majority of his playoff career has been really, really good. He just can't stay healthy. It's hamstrings, it's knees, it's ankles. Last year was a shoulder. He even got COVID last year. That hurt him, in the Western Conference Finals for a while. Like, it's just been bad luck for Chris Paul. So now if Chris Paul gets hurt, yeah, Phoenix is screwed. They're not winning a series without Booker and Chris Paul against anybody, especially a team playing as well as the New Orleans Pelicans are right now. So I'll give the Pelicans a puncher's chance, yes, but I will still take the Phoenix Suns to win this series. But I'm gonna tell you something. These playoffs, they've been phenomenal. They have been absolutely phenomenal. And, yeah. Tomorrow's going to be an interesting show. The Warriors-Nuggets game. What's the other one? Jazz and Dallas with Luka out. You've got the Memphis and Minnesota game. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. We got some great playoff basketball without a question. So with that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving It Up tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right where you're watching right now, Facebook Live, YouTube, and on Twitter. Be sure to also catch the Carving Up podcast on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and Anchor, as well as wherever you listen to your podcasts. All of those podcasting platforms, by the way, are where you can listen to episode 3. That's right. We are on episode 3 of the Carving It Up U.S. President's Edition. There you go for the streaming audience. The graphic for episode 3, we're covering 5 U.S. presidents. We're moving right along, myself and my co-host Isaac Lawson. And so, we've gotten some great positive feedback on the series thus far. Episode 3 will be available on Saturday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern, 4 a.m. Pacific time on our normal podcasting platforms, as well as on YouTube. So if you want to see the graphics of the presidents, you can do that on YouTube. If you just want to listen to it, you can do that on YouTube as well, and you can do it on the podcasting platforms we are normally on. So look, Saturday morning, get finished watching some NBA playoff basketball the night before, or do whatever you're doing in your own personal life, and listen, wake up the next morning. If you got to go to work, is what it is. Plug in the Spotify or whatever podcasting platform you listen to. Plug it into your car, whatever you do to listen to your podcast in your car, and listen to the Carving Up U.S. President's Edition. Or wake up in the morning, get you some breakfast, get you some coffee, and listen to the series. But this episode 3 is fascinating because listen, we're covering the man himself, Abraham Lincoln. So I think you guys will definitely want to be tuned in for that. Also, be sure to catch Carving Up on social media at Carving Up Podcast on Instagram, at Carving Up Pod on Twitter, and then Facebook. Search Bryson Carver, and the Carving Up logo should pull up right there. So until tomorrow's show, hope everybody has a great evening. Continue to stay safe out there. God bless you all. Peace out. Abe Link is the man. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube. Be sure to click that big red subscribe button and go check out the other clips and full shows of Carving It Up Live. Have a blessed day.